What's up, everybody? Ali after back with a new video. Today we're going to talk about the changes that are happening with the credit repair industry and why you need to pay attention to these changes, or else you can actually land yourself in trouble not only as a customer but also as a business operating under those pretenses. Stay tuned. Hey, what's up, everybody? Ali after back with a new video. If you're interested in learning about financial education when it comes to personal credit, building wealth, and of course living the best version of yourself when it comes to financial prosperity, then consider subscribing to this channel. Don't forget to turn the bell icon on to all instead of personalized, so that every time I do new videos like these, you'll never miss a thing. And with that said, let's concentrate on today's topic. What is exactly happening with the credit repair industry and why you should pay attention to it regardless of whether you're a company or whether you're a customer. So the first thing I'd like to address is that credit repair has always been a thing that a lot of, not only regulators, but also a lot of individuals look at with bad stigma. The reason why is because there's a lot of deception in the industry, but there's also a lot of different fraudulent activities that are happening that's causing the regulators to kind of pursue the credit repair industry in a very harsh way. Lately, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's enforcement agency has been tackling a lot of, regardless of their size, small, medium, large credit repair companies, with a specific type of regulation that's forcing them to not get paid for several months extra, right? So that's something that we need to be careful with, especially if you're a credit repair organization, and if you're very public about it, you have to be careful. And that includes, if you have videos out there, some of the guys that I know who have a lot of content out there, their basis of credit repair is essentially trying to sell a service or a template. And if that's the case, then you basically categorize yourself as a whole solution for negative item removal. And you're basically in the spotlight. You basically raised hundreds of red flags, and you're going to get targeted by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau plus other government agencies. So careful with that, right? So that's the first thing that I would like to bring to your attention. If you're a customer that has gone through a credit repair service of such nature, by using templates and all these type of things, and you've gotten frivolous dispute stuff, you have stuff that came back verified, or if you are having challenges, basically you're trying to fix your credit, that could be a big reason as to why, right? So there's, the credit reporting agency are also taking their proactive measure in terms of referencing your letter and saying, hey, we appreciate you trying to make the attempt of fixing your credit. You can do it for free. We just let you know, right? Now, obviously that causes a delay in fixing your credit, but because of some of the stuff that's happening with the credit repair organizations out there, that's the response from the credit reporting agency as well as the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So that's the first thing I wanted to get out of the way for you. Next up, moving on to point number 2. Credit repair is something that needs to be followed up with another service. And this part of, I think, the service is really bespoke. You really have to customize this because every customer situation is different. Now, if you're a customer who's listening to this video and potentially educating yourself on some of the lessons of personal credit, this is something that you want to get used to. Number 1, when it comes to credit repair, there's a lot of people who are basically teaching how to remove these negative items or selling you templates on how to do it. The problem is, the lesson and the plans that you're talking about when it comes to personal credit have to be accompanied by some sort of education that teaches you of the mistakes that you made and how to kind of warp yourself around that and try to dissect as much as you can in terms of the lessons from those mistakes, and then guide you towards, more educated decisions financially in the future. The holistic approach needs to be embedded in the credit repair culture. So there's a lot of organizations out there that are not respecting this. And obviously they are the ones that are going to be targeted. And the truth is behind the matter, if you're not doing it the right way and you're doing deceptive tactics, regardless of the type of education, if it's a deceptive type of tactic that you're teaching during the educational process, there's a high chance that you won't survive. So the future of the credit repair industry is based on survivability. Are you going to survive? And if you're going to survive, now, most of you guys may be following educators out there that provide some decent knowledge, but the problem is it's regurgitated, old, outdated information that is no longer applicable based on current standards. And if that's the case and you're following that information, you get upset about somebody giving you the raw data and the raw information straight to your face, and you get upset because their channel all of a sudden is changed or their strategy changed, and you're too afraid to go ahead and learn new stuff because you're just so used to seeing comfortable results. Then I want you to be uncomfortable because you need to start getting uncomfortable. This is the type of thing that's going to transform the industry on its own. And that means that your credit profiles, especially if you're going through a company or an individual, is going to be handled in accordance to those changes that are being made. So education is a primary goal here, right? And this is why my channel is focused on that. Number 1, we talked about the CFPB going after credit repair organizations for misleading practices and all these type of things. Number 2, education, right? So like I said, dissect the mistakes and create a game plan and blueprint to elevate your status in terms of personal credit and the education you get from it, right? So the third thing when it comes to this is there has to be a service that's offered at the end of the line that is a primary service. So when I teach individuals what my ultimate personal credit mastery, and I say, look, offer value add. Don't just offer credit repair because that's just something that a lot of people think is enough as a company to offer, and then you're good to go. That's actually a dangerous point to be, because there's nothing consistent about that, right? You offer credit repair, customer just fixes it and they come back and they try to go somebody else because they're not satisfied. There is no one solution that you can offer them that kind of completes the transaction to the end. For example, if you're a mortgage broker, that's something that you can possibly concentrate on, and that can help your customers, and it can help your customers. But how many mortgage brokers out there are just concentrating on mortgages, right? Obviously not. So they have different variety of things they can offer: financial products, remortgages, equity lines of credit, all these type of things. There's a reason institutions are designed to offer diversity. So as a credit repair organization, that information needs to be embedded in your mindset and the structure of your company. If you're a customer and you're going after individuals who are simply offering credit repair services without a designated value that's there in addition to credit repair, and of course primarily education, then you should be watching out, right? Just because you have templates that are cheap that you can access and download and send off and get results on credit level, how much wealthier did that make you? Ask yourself these questions. How much did it pay you to do that? And how much did it pay that person, right? So you have to start with math in your mind if you're going to go through a solution. And you as a credit repair organization need to understand the value and outcome that you're creating as well. Obviously, removing of negative items is an incredible start. But beyond that, what happens? And our fourth and final point, and I believe this is an extremely important point, is that if you're going about fixing your credit, you need to understand how credit reporting infrastructure works, and you need to understand your current debt obligations, right? So a lot of people think that if you just go into your credit repair journey, you fix your personal credit, that you don't have to worry about paying those debts down. So for example, a lot of negative items are posted in your credit reports, right? Given that, a lot of people think that if the negative items fall off the credit report, that you don't have to pay those debts anymore. Now, depending on the type of account it is and the status of those accounts, obviously there are certain things that you have to be careful with, but you have obligation towards those creditors. Your credit report is a financial performance snapshot of you as a consumer to other businesses who are potentially looking at your profile to see if you're eligible to ask them for money. Doesn't mean that you can get rid of the debt just because they come off your negative, the negative items come off your credit reports, which is, that point that we have to focus on is your current credentials and your financial responsibilities towards those creditors are still have to be respected. You still have to follow that process. And if you're unable to do so, you have to use financial strategies to be able to negotiate, to be able to fix that. So my point today being is that, with all these points said, and we're going to summarize that, one more time in a couple seconds here, but think about that. If you're a company that's offering credit to your customers, right? And the reason I'm addressing both sides, not just the customer base or people educating themselves, but also the businesses, is because for me, this industry needs to survive. That's number one, right? Because it's so much value that you can offer to your customers if you understand exactly what you need to do. And the second side to that is if customers are well educated and they make more informed financial decisions, these sectors of financial services become more refined, right? There's a lot more that we can access. There's a lot more as a collective community that we can share upon. And, banks are obviously looking to refine their products and services. So if there's a lot of loss and risk and, backdoor stuff and illegal tactics and essentially a lot of defaults and misleading information, there's no, the bank's concentration is going more towards fraud prevention instead of innovation. And that really causes a distress in the financial markets, because now it's just like the people who are legitimately looking to borrow credit, who can potentially go through a lot of wrongs in their lives and circumstances, are being crippled because of bad characters or people who are just deceptive. And your willingness to accept that deception to get the funding to get you across the goal, which is basically scoring hundreds of other families, right? So this is the reality of the industry. This is how the industry is changing. So because at a point, when there's a certain level of threshold that the institutions and the government and credit repair organizations have to come to realize that, hey, how much more are we going to continue doing this instead of focusing on the holistic approach? Credit was utilized back in the days, when it was first launched, to create wealth, There's a lot of people that create an incredible amount of wealth. There's huge organizations, multi-billion-dollar firms and conglomerates who are using business and personal credit on so many different levels. And they're operating very well. They're operating with an incredible amount of cash flow, hiring hundreds of thousands of employees, right? And are doing a fantastic job at that. And you as an individual need to focus on, hey, fixing my credit. I need to focus on making myself get paid instead of putting it out of my pocket. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people think that just fixing your credit and going to funding is the best course of action for you because you'll access capital. And the reality is it's not really access liquidity, you're accessing more debt. And depending on how you use that money, you can get yourself in trouble. So I just wanted to point out those things, and just to summarize, number one, CFPB is pursuing, whether small, medium, or big, large organizations when it comes to credit repair and looking at red flags on how you operate. Number two, you need to focus on education. Don't just think about credit repair as then that and that's it and done for all service. You have to go beyond that. You have to think about your customers and what more you can offer. Number three, just because you have that level of education doesn't necessarily give you the end result. You have to drive your customers to that result. That means you need value add services. You need to add more than just credit repair to your arsenal in order to accommodate and maybe primarily focus on refining that area so that you can complementary offer credit repair, which in turn makes you a more viable option compared to the generic stuff out there. And then finally, don't forget that just because you're removing negative items from your credit report doesn't give you the right to think that you can have you're no longer obliged to that creditor and you don't have to pay them. Obviously, there are circumstances where you don't, but you have to be careful there as well to assume that is all. So just be careful with those lessons. I just wanted to give you guys this information, and I believe it's going to help you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing and turn the bell icon on to all instead of personalized so that you get all my notifications, and especially when I'm doing live streams, which will happen in the upcoming few days. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment below and let me know your thoughts on what I just shared with you today. And let me know if you knew about these type of things or not. So I'll definitely like to start a discussion with you. And with that said, this is your guide and mentor, Ali Tarafter. Catch you guys on the next one. Bye for now.